Whether you're outside grilling, changing diapers, or just trying to catch a breath, the Young Dad Podcast is your spot for real conversations about fatherhood, manhood, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jay, and I sit down with dads, experts, and everyday men to talk about the joys, the struggles, and the lessons that come with raising kids and building a meaningful life. From mental health and relationships to faith, family, and the funny stuff only dads understand, YDP is here to remind you that you're not doing this alone. So grab a juice box, grab a snack, kick back, and join the conversation because fatherhood doesn't come with a manual, but it should come with a podcast. And what does it really take to chase your dreams for 20 years and not lose yourself in the process? Today's guest, Dave, knows exactly what your journey looks like. He went from the community theater in South Louisiana to starring in major Hollywood films like Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler and featuring Michael B. Jordan. But behind the cameras, red carpet, and scripts is a man who faced rejection, anxiety, and the weight of balancing art, fatherhood, and mental health. And this isn't about fame, it's about finding peace and purpose in the long road to success. So, whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, or maybe you finally got a moment to sit down, relax, and listen to your favorite podcast, thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. Again, today's guest is Dave, actor, husband, father, living proof that success doesn't happen overnight. From a small town kid in Louisiana to 20 years working in TV and film, Dave has been on sets big and small, learning lessons that go far beyond the script. He's appeared in blockbuster films, Emmy-winning shows, and most recently the hit Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Michael B. Jordan, which I had previously mentioned. But it's his honesty about the in-between moments, the anxiety before auditions, the grind between gigs, and the constant pull between ambition and family that makes him a voice worth listening to. So make sure you have your juice box, grab a snack, and let's jump into the conversation today with Dave and welcome him to the show. Dave, welcome.
Thanks so much.
Of
Thanks for
course,
having
man.
me.
Of course. All right, so let's go back. Let's go through your story a little bit today. That's what I like to do with all my guests, and talk about the story. Because the story of how we've gotten through it is, I truly believe, is the blueprint for the next person that may be going through it. And so you grew up a million miles from Hollywood. I mean, Louisiana, Hollywood, very different. You get the Southern Bible Belt compared to the bright lights of LA, Hollywood. So what sparked your initial love for acting and getting you into it from the beginning?
Okay, well, I had no interest in performing growing up. I was an artist. I was always drawing when I was younger. So I figured that would be my career path. I was going to be an artist. As, non-lucrative as that promised to be, that's what I was going to be doing. I did perform like in middle school and then, in high school, but it was more for fun. So yeah, that wasn't really an ambition of mine. Plus, it was just so far from my mind as far as being on TV and in South Louisiana. There's a great film industry there now, but that was non-existent when I was a kid. So yeah, I majored in art. I was a advertising design major in college, which I figured if I was going to be an artist, I was going to have to try to make some money doing it. But you have to be really good at the computer to do that, and I was not. I was not good in school in any capacity, really. So, but that didn't really work out. So at the time, I was kind of dabbling in acting classes and doing things like that. And I really kind of got the bug in college. So I really found it very late, So when I talk to younger people that are, in high school and that's their ambition, I say, well, that's great, man. That's so cool that now, and you can start working on that now. Sometimes we find our calling later in life, and that's what happened to me. But once I decided that, once that was something that I was going to pursue, I went all in and took every acting class in college that I could possibly take. I was doing community theater. I was auditioning for everything I could possibly get my hands on, indie films and theater, and I was doing shows, theatrical productions, like back to back to back. I was, always at rehearsal. But I really had in the back of my mind, I had this, thing for film. It's just kind of a different medium. It's a different performance style. And that really fascinated me. So once we moved away from Louisiana, to the Houston area. And, right before the film industry in Louisiana really kind of took off. So it was the worst possible time for us to leave Louisiana, but it really worked out well for me because Houston is a really good place to kind of get started. It's a way to kind of you can audition there. You know, you can get an agent. You can, you know, start working with casting directors, and you can start working on local productions. Not much film and TV, but there's a lot of commercials and a lot of corporate stuff. So I could kind of get my feet wet and experience all that, and then, you know, kind of slowly, kind of my toes in the waters of Austin and Dallas and Louisiana, started this burgeoning film industry. So over the past 20 years, that's what I've been doing. I've been kind of building all these relationships with these casting directors in all these areas. Yeah, and rest is history. Here I am now.
Very cool. What have been some of, like, the hardest moments, like, being in the acting, film, movies, acting industry that have been just, like, some of the hardest moments that you're just like, "Man, I don't know if this is for me. I this is just ridiculous. I'm just gonna go find a regular 9 to 5."
Yeah, yeah. Well, that regular 9 to 5 was never an option for me because I don't really know how to do anything other than this. You know, an office job would just be hell for me. So, but yeah, it's the constant rejection. You know, you always hear about actors experiencing rejection, and it's not necessarily to your face rejection. It's not like, yeah, you're not the right person for this. It's just you don't hear anything. So, you know, a lot of actors are just happy that they're getting auditions or that they got an agent. You know, but even when that happens, you're still, as far as a person like me who's just kind of a grunt as far as the film and TV industry is. It's not like, you know, these directors and producers are reaching out to me offering me millions of dollars for their next, you know, sending me scripts. It's just auditions. It's audition after audition, and there is, especially for me, a ton of anxiety that comes with that. You know, there have been many times where I've driven to Dallas or Austin and prepared my ass off just to make that drive and just spend 5 minutes in the room and completely, you know, lay an egg, you know, in the room, just be terrible. And a lot of that was because of just the anxiety and the nerves that took over. And that can be pretty demoralizing when you make that drive and you work so hard and you get there and you don't do well. So I had to do that many times until I got to the point where I just had to change my mindset and kind of rely on my faith and try to, you know, go in the room presenting a gift that I believe I have, not necessarily for their approval, but for my own gratification, for something that I'm going to give them the best that I can do, the way I see the role, and something that I believe I've been blessed with, and they can do with it what they want. You know what I mean? And a lot of times you go in there and they don't
Mhm,
know what they want. So you go in there and you do this thing and they're like, wow, we didn't see it that way. This, we think we might be this, you might be right for this particular role because of what you brought in, or, oh yeah, there's this other thing, like you performed in such a way and presented yourself in such a way that this other role, maybe even a bigger role, might be right for you. So, you know, that's started to happen more and more, which is cool.
so when they're like, and I'm just curious honestly about that, and then we'll get back to the whole, like, mental health talk, but does it, like, more like, when you go in for these auditions, is it like you're only auditioning for that one role, or is it to the panel you're auditioning to, do they have, like, multiple roles they're trying to fill, so they're just kinda seeing who walks through that door and how they audition, and then trying to fit them in kinda wherever afterwards? Kinda like a high school play where the roles aren't, like, predetermined, or we're not just auditioning for this one. It's like, let's
Right.
see who comes in, and then maybe, someone that was auditioning for a lower role ends up being, like, really great. We're gonna put them into a lead role and vice versa kinda thing. Like, "Oh, they came in for this and they suck, so I'm gonna put them
Right.
down here," kinda thing.
They're gonna be, you know, soldier number two holding a spear or something like
Right.
that because, um, no, yeah, it's usually for one role. Sometimes it's like, okay, you're up for this role and this role. Be prepared for both. And you know, so usually you have sides, which are just you know, a piece of the script that they send out for this particular role, and you prepare that, and you go in and audition with that. And sometimes they're like, okay, well, we have this other role. Do you mind going out and preparing that and coming back in the room? And sometimes that happens, and when that happens, that's kind of my wheelhouse because I know at that point that they're interested, they like me, and I can kind of relax a little bit. And I can't, it's impossible to overthink it because all you have is like, 10 or 20 minutes to go out into the hallway, kind of run the lines and get prepared, and you just go on instinct. And I think that's works best for me if I just rely on instinct. If you have like 5 days to look at the script and figure it out, I mean, that helps, but sometimes you start to overthink.
Yeah, you're gonna overthink it, you're gonna
So
over
yeah, that's happened a
prepare.
couple times where I've gone in for a small role. Yeah, and I think actors are notorious for
Definitely.
that, just overthinking every aspect of the audition process.
Yeah. I think that's just like life in general, right? When you have too much time to prepare for something, you're gonna start overthinking it. You're gonna overcomplicate the details. I find that in my work. I work in mental health myself, so it's like when I know I'm gonna be meeting with a client, like I met with one yesterday, and I knew she was coming up on my schedule. I knew the day of the week it was. And I knew, okay, we're probably in for it today, just like kind of knowing like history and things like that, not in a bad way, but it's like I'm overthinking and like trying to over prepare for it and making sure we get everything that we need to get done and accomplished during our meeting yesterday and stuff. And then she shows up, and then it was like, wow, I overthought this for nothing because we went in a totally different direction than anything I prepared for, anything I was ready for. So I think that happens like in life in general, where if we have too much time to prepare something, especially if we like really care about it and it's really important to us, we're gonna like overthink the details. We're gonna overcomplicate the details. We're just gonna overthink it to the highest, to the biggest extent that we can. Uh,
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
just human nature. And so
yeah, and
the
I think that happens as well when on set. When I book a job, I over prepare for that, and I envision in my head everything, all the aspects of what the set will be like when you never know. It's never the way you think it's going to be. The choices you make aren't going to work, probably. Like everything's going to be different. So you may as well just kind of go in open and adapt, you know, most of the
yeah.
time. And that's true in life as well.
Yeah, being able to stay flexible and kinda open to how things are gonna be when you get there. That's a real tool and skill, 'cause I really think a lot of people don't have that ability to have that flexible thinking, like, built into them. Like, if they some people do, but I don't think a lot of people do, where they are going into a situation and then they expect it to be one way, but then it's not that way, so then they're either pissed off, sad, mad, or something, and they just can't overcome that kinda thing.
Yeah.
They can't, like, work through it in real time. They just either shut down, leave, or they just get upset, and they're just, like, on with their day, and now their whole day's ruined because, I was gonna walk into Starbucks. I walk into Starbucks at 7:08 every single day, and I got there at 7:08 today, and there was 5 people in line. Usually, there's only 2 people in line. So now my whole day's ruined because now I'm gonna have to be a couple extra minutes late. I should have walked in here at 8:03 or 7:03 kinda thing, and then that's,
Yeah.
like, a lot of people where it's like, "Well, now my whole day's ruined," kinda thing. It's like, your whole day's not ruined. You had a bad moment. Things didn't go as planned initially, but it's like, how was the rest of your day? Well, the rest of my day was pretty good. I was productive at work, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and it was pretty good. It's like, "Oh, so you didn't have a bad day.
Right.
Sounds like you had a pretty good day. You just had one little miscue."
Right. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to how we take things that happen,
Mhm.
whether we look at it as a learning experience or something we can take something positive out of every experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And so is that something you had to do a lot as, you were starting to get more roles and audition more, just to try to find the silver lining in every rejection or any moment of uncertainty?
Yeah, yeah, and that took a really long time. I mean, even now with all the success that I've had, um I'm still in the back of my mind like, oh man, I'm not having as many auditions lately as I could. Things aren't going, things are slow right now. How do I approach that? And I'm in such a great position. I've got a great film in theaters that's now streaming. I've got another series that's getting ready to come out. I've shot two or three in recent months, and still I'm not satisfied with that. I'm like, I'm never going to work again. Like, well, what's going on? So because it's such an uncertain industry
Yeah. Is there like a
that
number that you try to hit like every like month, couple months
no,
to feel
no,
comfortable with?
I have friends that do that. They keep a log, a very, very detailed log of auditions, how they went, how many times they've worked in the past year, all that stuff. And that's just not how my brain works.
That doesn't sound fun. That feels like it's just gonna be more stressful and more, like, anxiety ridden, because 'cause you're always gonna be comparing, and
Right.
you're gonna be comparing, like, "Oh, man, in June of 2023, I had 12 auditions, but then in June of 2024, I had 3 auditions, and in 2025, I had 17 auditions. Oh, man, I wonder what 6 months is gonna look like, 6-month forecast." Like, I would just yeah, no, I would be miserable doing something like that, because
Yeah.
it just sounds so awful.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that's overthinking. And
100% it
and
is.
and for some people maybe it works. Maybe they can look at all those statistics and gain some sort of a knowledge of how to move forward and which direction to go. I think, but now I'm so kind of firmly based in how I approach everything as far as auditions and gigs and things like that, that all that is unnecessary noise.
Gotcha.
It's I have a very small, I'm very focused on how I do things, and it seems to work for me. And I don't. That's another thing. I try to keep all the things the same. Whatever's worked, keep doing it, and that comes with auditions as well. I coach a few people, and a lot of times they're like, well, I think they're looking for this age. It says that they're looking for this age, and I don't know about that. I think they have 3 cameras on the show, and I think this, and I'm like, none of that matters. None of it matters. Go just focus on what you know. All the rest of that is unnecessary noise. Just focus on the things, the script, your performance, what's happening in the scene. 'Cause all of that other stuff gets in the way.
Yeah. No, and I think there's important, like, to find that balance right along the way and to work through those different things. And, if you're able to find a system that works and it feels good to you and it feels comfortable and it's working for you, of course you can tweak it and improve it. But if it works, stick to what you know and what worked along the way,
Yeah,
right? I think that's for any job that someone's in. If you found a system and you found a way to work that works really well, that brings you success on a pretty consistent basis, like, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks out of 4 weeks a month, then that's a pretty good system you wanna be using. You can improve it to get more consistent, but other than that, if it works and it works kinda thing, then don't
right.
ruin it kinda
Yeah,
thing. And it maybe those numbers work for them, and they found something in that. Because I do think, part of my job, it is a numbers game, seeing, so many clients a week and all this fun stuff, and so many numbers and metrics that fall into it. And I would think it's the similar with, like, acting and stuff, right? Like, some of it has to be a numbers game with, getting so many auditions and getting so much time in front of people and so much camera time and things like that. Like, it's a numbers game to see what's gonna happen until you get that big
absolutely.
one, and then once you get that big one, are you kinda now, like, chasing the next big one? Now that you kinda had that taste and seen the success, the movie, the stream, all that fun stuff, now the next show, and are you kinda chasing something equal level or more kinda just what's gonna be the next best fit?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question too, because I think a lot of people in our industry, friends of mine, some of my peers, I get messages sometimes it's like, hey, do you still do day player roles, or do you still do co-star and guest star stuff since you've done this? And, some people turn down auditions because they're like, oh no, I just did this role. This one's smaller. So I'm gonna turn that down and I'm gonna move on to something else. And that's not my philosophy either. I just try to take every audition as it comes. Sometimes it's a smaller role and it ends up being a bigger role. Like I read for Queen Sugar several years ago, and I don't think the role was meant to be that big. I think it was going to be like a couple of episodes. But when I got there and we started working on the scene, I kind of had a rapport with one of the lead characters, and that role became 6 or 7 episodes. And I built in the past 20 years built relationships with all these casting directors, so we know each other very well. They know what I'm capable of. They know, and they're fighting for me in the room.
Mhm.
So I trust them to whatever they send me. They believe I can do that role well. I've done a couple of smaller roles in a couple of recent films, and it was disappointing when I got the role because I had read for something else. It's like, well, we want you to do this. I'm like, okay, um, that's not what I intended. That's not what I was hoping for. But I'm going to take this and I do everything I can with that role. And sometimes it's one scene in a movie, and it's not what I hoped for, but it turns out to be much more profound than I initially expected. It turns out to be a much more pivotal scene in the movie. So I just try to give everything I can to every role, and that leads to whatever comes, whatever positive thing I have from that particular experience, then I take it as it comes,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
No, definitely. I can definitely see how people, like, feel like they outgrow, like, certain roles,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, well, I already went past that level. Now I'm at this level. I gotta stay
Right.
here,"
Yeah.
kinda thing. "I can't go back, that's beneath me,"
Yeah.
kinda thing. When it's not, kinda thing, 'cause there may be a day, after you hit that bigger role that you were hoping for, that now things aren't looking how they were gonna look. You haven't landed that next bigger role. So now you're like, well, shoot, maybe I do need to go back into some of this smaller stuff because, enough small stuff will add up to, you know, at least being able to,
Yeah.
get you through for a little bit kind of thing. You
Yeah.
just got to do what you got to do.
I try to give every role that I'm received the respect that I think it deserves. And because you're playing, you're a part of a puzzle, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I try to tell people that, you know, you starting out and you want to be like, if it's a puzzle of this beautiful mountain scene with this beautiful house, you want to be like part of the house, part of that, fireplace in the window. It's like, oh, I read for that, but they gave me a piece of the sky. It's like, well, that piece of the sky is important, and you're
So,
playing
yeah.
a part in the entire puzzle. So give that, all these different parts make up a whole. That's
Hmm.
hopefully will be something really special. So just play your role and try to do something special with it, and eventually you'll move into those. Something, sometimes all of us are a lot of actors that have been working for 20, 30 years never make it to that big headlining A-list spot. They are destined to play these parts in the trees and parts in the clouds and smaller parts of the house, but they do it so well that they're always going to work. Uh,
Hmm.
if those bigger roles come, I'll welcome them with open arms. But I'm happy to play those smaller roles. I do,
That makes sense.
my rate has gone up, so that's good. It's like I
Yeah.
have a
Hey,
minimum
cheers.
rate where I'm gonna only work for this, and my agent kind of handles that. So, you know,
Good. Yeah, it's
consistency
good.
is important for me.
100%. And so I had another like kind of question specifically relating to like film and like sets and things like that. So you mentioned that sugar Queen Sugar was something Sugar
Yes,
Queen
Queen
that you were on.
sugar.
Queen Sugar, you were only supposed to be on there for, like, a couple episodes. You had just mentioned. So how does it work to when it's, like, turns into, like, multiple episodes? Do the writers and the director just end up seeing something and they're like, "Oh, this is here there's a story here. Let's write this in," or is it when, like, episodes are, like, recorded and then, like, cut, edited, and then they come out more, so then there's, like, feedback coming from, like, the people viewing, and then I don't really think that's into effect because everything's, like, shot before and then recorded and then edited and then produced and,
Yeah,
streamed wherever kinda thing. So I don't that doesn't make sense, but are there ever those times where it's just like, "Oh, we see something really good here. Let's change the script a little bit. Let's change the storyline here to add in more of this kinda thing, and we can take it this angle and this way,
yeah,
with that person," or kinda thing. Is
yeah.
that kinda how it works, or
I think so. I'm not in the writers' room. I don't have meetings in the with the
that make yeah,
producers that make those decisions, but they are writing week to week. For TV, you're
so they're writing
the
in real
writer.
time, kind of with, like,
Right.
feedback and what people are so
Yeah.
that's still, like, a way it's, like, created then, because in my mind, like, when a season's, like, produced on Netflix or when a new show comes out and it's, like, maybe episodes are coming out every week or so, in my mind, those are all just pre-recorded, they're already done, edited, everything, and now they're being released kinda
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes they just release it. You release a big chunk. You release the whole season at once, and then you have feedback for, okay, if we get picked up for another season, then we might go in a different direction. But
Gotcha. Okay, that
a
makes
lot of
sense.
times, A lot of times it's just week to week. They're writing for the next episode, and they're like, oh, we have this idea of this storyline. Maybe we can incorporate this. And I think that's what happened. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I think that's
Sure.
what happened with Queen Sugar. They kind of made me a little bit more prominent in the storyline, and then just wrote me in to a couple other aspects of the show, which was cool.
And then, so how does a show go from, like, pilot to, like, a full-blown, like, season? Because the pilots are, like, always there. I would assume, like, pilots are just like, "Okay, this is just a pilot, people. We don't know what's gonna happen after this. We're gonna shoot this, record this, keep your phones near you. We'll let you know in a few days if the network's gonna pick this up," kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah. They shoot the pilot, and that they go to the producers and the network and all that, and they decide whether or not it's going to be picked up. Um, I've never That's never been my experience. I've never participated in a pilot, and it's
Gotcha.
like, oh, you're cast. I've had a couple opportunities, but it never quite got there. But for me, it's just been a series has already been picked up, and you're reading for a role in this series that's already been picked up. So, but
Gotcha.
yeah, they shoot a pilot a lot of times, and there's higher powers that are deciding its fate.
Makes sense. I'm just curious to, like, a lot of behind the scenes kinda things because it's interesting, like, you see it on TV, you see the stuff, and you try to put, like, the pieces together of how it, like, all works and things like that, but being able to talk to someone that's actually been behind the scenes
Yeah,
and, like, talk to it and seeing kinda, like, the intricacies, nuance, whatever you wanna say, however you wanna say that, intricacies, nuance, whichever, is always really cool.
yeah, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And now kinda back to the mental health side of everything. We went really deep there into, like, the what the sets look like and stuff. I just didn't ask you what colors and stuff where everything was. I'm assuming there's a lot of green screens, a lot of green that you're in front of.
I don't do a whole lot of special effects type films.
Okay,
So, in my particular case, not a ton of green screen, but yes, it definitely comes into play from time to time. I did a movie called Tomorrow War that was with Chris Pratt, where they were fighting aliens the whole time. But I was kind of an administrative guy, in an office, so there wasn't a whole lot. I didn't get to fight any
gotcha.
aliens,
Dang
so
it.
I was just telling them that they could not, you know, travel through time to fight these aliens, so that
Did
it
you
wouldn't.
ask to fight aliens at, like, any time on that set? You're like, "Come on, let me fight one alien."
Dave did. Me personally, my character never
Yeah.
did. But me personally, I'm like, come on, man, because
Come on.
they went to Iceland, they went to all these cool places as a group, and they got all this camaraderie. They got to get to know each other, and I was just a guy telling them, it's like, You're crazy. You're not going to fight aliens." So yeah, yeah, I asked to go to Iceland, and they didn't have a ticket for me. So what are you gonna
Not go to Iceland, I guess.
do?
No. And so you overall are pretty open about, like, your struggles with, like, mental health. You mentioned it a few times there. How did you work through, like, the anxiety, the ups, the downs, and the mental health struggles, like, throughout your career, and even, like, to this day?
Yeah, I mean, early on, it was rough. I'd always struggled with anxiety, and I think everybody does at some point to some extent. But for me, it was pretty debilitating. It was just so nervous I couldn't see straight for auditions and for all these different gigs. And honestly, I just had to grin and bear it and just get through it. And that's what I've been doing for 20 years now. Just go through the struggle and meet it head on. And after hundreds and hundreds of auditions, I've gotten to a point where I can trust myself. And it's important for me to not do it for them, but it's for me to go
Definitely.
in there and kind of present this gift that I think I have, and they can do with it what they want. I think a lot of people go in there trying to give people what they want, and it's important to just rely on yourself and whatever you believe in, and have confidence in yourself, and do the best you can do. How they take that is up to them. It has nothing to do with you. So that's kind of how I got through it.
No, it makes sense. I mean, you just gotta remember it's for you at the end of the day, and regardless if they like it or not. That's on them. That's out of your control
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? You only can
Yeah.
control what you can control in that moment. And so let's shift gears here a little bit. And so being married, raising a family while doing this career, what has that looked like? Because it seems like there would be a lot of good because there's a lot of like I don't want to say downtime, and I don't want to say that in like the wrong way. There's a lot of time that you probably are around, but there's also probably a lot of time when you're out, where you're on the road or while you're shooting and you're away
Yeah.
on set for days and weeks and maybe months on end. So how does it all balance and how does it all work together in this career of yours?
Yeah. Well, both my kids are in college now. They're both at Texas A&M, both studying engineering. Thankfully, they got their mom's brain. They have some of my artistic side, but
That's
as
good.
far
You
as them,
need that. You need the
yeah,
personality.
yeah. But as far as book smarts, they got that from their mom, thankfully.
So you picked a good one. You picked a good one then.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I was when I was in college when my wife and I were dating, and I was majoring in general studies. I
Mhm.
was in art, and then I switched to general studies. I'm like, I'm just gonna get out. I'm just gonna finish my college life and be done with it. But when people would meet us, they would say, "Oh, what's your major? What's your girlfriend's major?" And she was like, "Chemical engineering." It's like, "Oh, that's smart, man. Good job, good job. What about you?" And I'd say general studies. They're like, "That's okay. That's all right." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, appreciate it."
Thanks. I appreciate that. So cool. You just called me dumb. Great. So what did she think about all this at first? It's like, okay, I'm gonna be a chemical engineer and you're gonna be an actor. Um,
Struggling actor in the
Strug
Southeast.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
what the heck was she thinking? I'm just playing. Uh, I'm just playing. But how is those conversations and then raising a family with everything and what was all that like? Just kinda
yeah,
going through that side of it because it sounds like if these kids are in college now, this acting career and those and raising kids and having a family have all kind of been on a parallel timeline with each
yeah,
other.
yeah.
And so
And I
how has that
mean,
all played out?
she knew what she was getting into from the beginning. When we were in high school, she knew I was, she's the one who got me through chemistry in high school. So she knew book smarts weren't where it was at for me. But, and she knew that I had talent and I had, value in all these other areas. And we loved each other. So once you start a foundation with that and you're both working
Mhm.
hard, to accomplish your goals, but she's been supportive, from the beginning. Once I started pursuing acting, I when she had, the 9 to 5, and once we had kids, I was with my kids during the day, and I would go to like a, kind of a odd job at night. I was working in a frame shop at Michael's Arts and Crafts, and so I had to have a job. I had to have some sort of a job, and
That's
I
what
could
an arts
frame.
degree gets you people. You get to work at
Yep,
Michael's. I'm
you
just
get to work at Michael's. Yep,
kidding. Take your pick,
exactly.
Joanna's, Michael's, Hobby Lobby. Just kidding.
Yeah. Bartending, did a lot of bartending in college. Um, but yeah, it was balancing all that was
Yeah.
it was difficult, when the kids are small, you know, we had to kind of miss on some opportunities. We had to compromise on a lot of different things. If my wife was going to be traveling for work and I get an audition and I had to go to Dallas or Austin, sometimes you had to say, well, I can't do that. I have my kids, and that's tough. You gotta, but you have to trust that it's all gonna work out in the end. But we just had to compromise on a lot of different things. And now the kids are, I'm so proud of them. They're just two really smart, beautiful, kind adults, and all that work and all that, you know nurturing turned them into really incredible people. So, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you do your best and just things go haywire. But we worked together, we compromised, and we play off of each other really well. She's kind of more of an old school parenting style where it's, rub some dirt on it, you're okay. I don't want to hear it, go to bed kind of thing. And I was, it's kind of a role reversal for us. I'm more of the nurturing, kind hearted parent, which she's kind and loving too, but it was more of a, she kind of played the dad role. I was with the kids all day and I got to spend so much time with them and kind of mold them into who they are today. So yeah,
That's really
it's
cool.
cool.
That's really cool. And so what was it like for them, especially as they, like, got older and they started to see more of, like, dad maybe getting bigger roles, going to auditions, maybe not being around as much as they got older, got to school age. What what kinda lessons did or not lessons, but what was that like trying to balance just the in-betweens? They got older, more, like, extracurriculars start to pile on and all
Yeah.
that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've always been proud of what I'm trying to do and the successes that I've had. They haven't been all that impressed over the years. Their friends, their friends are more impressed with what I do than they are. They're so used to it.
Yeah.
They would get up to go to school. We get ready to go to school, and it's like, hey, look, that's on TV. That's in this commercial. Check it out. And they're like, yeah, Dad, we know.
And then other kids would be like, "That's your dad?
Yeah.
Oh."
Yeah. Once I started working with other actors that they really, when I got a movie with Chris Pratt, they're like, "Oh, this is so cool." And once
"You're
when I got
cool
the
now, dad."
yeah, when I got the role in Sinners and I was going to be
Mm,
working with Michael B. Jordan, that was and my daughter was like, "Hey, the premiere." It's like, "You took mom to the last premiere. Well, maybe it's my turn." But I was the only one that went to the premiere, so
yeah, that's
I only
cool.
got one ticket. But yeah, they're very supportive, very proud, and I'm proud of they're proud.
Definitely. And then what lessons do you feel like it if any, that they kind of taken away from, like, your acting career and from you in general, like, specifically around, like, acting and the mental health and all the lessons that you've learned? What
Yeah,
lessons do
I
you hope they've taken away?
yeah. I think the biggest thing is perseverance, and learning from all these things that happen to you to try to have a lesson. When I would put them to bed when they were younger, and something was bothering them, I would just say, look, man, this is a drop in the bucket. This is this thing that's happening now. It's a drop in the bucket to your whole life. And you just gotta, it's preparing you for something else. Every hardship that you have is preparing you to be a better human. It's preparing you to be great. And that's something that I always kind of tried to instill in them. When they got older and something was bothering them, it's like, you know what I'm going to say? It's like, it's a drop in the bucket. Like, is that what you can say? Like, yeah, yeah, it's a drop in the bucket. So every obstacle, every thing that you go through is preparing you for something else. It's molding you, iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think that's they've taken that to heart, and they do that every day when they're in school and all their other endeavors. So yeah, I'm proud of that.
love that, love that. And then you kinda mentioned faith a little bit. What impact has, like, faith or, like, any faith practices have had on, like, your career and throughout the last, like, 20 years or so of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for most of my life, I guess I've been sort of a optimistic agnostic. I was really I had a lot of doubts. I tried to believe, I really wanted to believe. And I come from South Louisiana, where just about everybody is very devout. The Cajun culture is very, very steeped in Catholicism and faith. And I never really got it. When I went to church, I'm like, yeah, I don't understand this. I don't know what's going on. It's like, yeah, all these different Bible verses and all the things that they say, this is true. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Like, because
Mhm,
somebody wrote it down thousands of years ago and then they translated it and somebody else wrote it. And it's like, how do you know? And but I've always wanted to. I've always been willing, you know.
definitely.
But I guess recently I had some substance abuse issues, some addiction issues, and I went into a rehab center in hill country in Hunt, Texas, and later found out that it's the same place that guys like Eminem and Dave Mustaine and a lot of people like that went. And I really needed to kind of decompress and like get closer to whatever higher power that it. Then they do that there for sure. You get your phone away. You're not with your phone. You're with all these other people. There's a lot of meditation. There's a lot of quiet and silence and just prayer. And I was there for 3 weeks, and that kind of reset my brain. And I've been sober for a little over a year now, and that's helped a lot with mental health. There was a time when I was like, there's no way I can stop drinking for a week, but forever. There's no way. In a year, when people say I've been sober a year, I'm like, how did that was so inconceivable to me. But here I am, and I still when I'm we just went to a football game in Baton Rouge. We went and saw A&M and LSU, which was a great
That
experience.
was a good game.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for the Aggies, it certainly was.
Yeah.
And I had never been to. I've never walked into Death Valley and rooted for the other team. That's the first time I've ever done that. I've been an LSU fan my whole life, but and even in situations like that where it's drinking and in the culture in Louisiana, drinking is just such a important part of the culture, and with tailgating, and all that.
Uh-huh.
So, and there's times when I'm like, yeah, I just want to relax at this event and just have a beer, and but you just have to kind of switch your mindset and your way of looking at your environment, and try to bring it to a higher place. And that's what I've been able to do, and that's what I try to do every time I'm in a situation like that. And I try to put myself in the right situations to where I'm not tempted, and I don't have any cravings and things like that. But that kind of at that time it was a really really low point, lowest point of my life, probably. And I just was like, I don't know if you're there. I don't know if all of this is true, but if I'm gonna trust in you, and I'm gonna ask you for help. And if you get me through this, I'm with you. I'm down with you. And he did. So I'm committed now, and I have my Bible study every morning, like clockwork. Every morning I get up and I start my day with that. Kind of have anxiety when I first get up, and I'm like, I know if I go through that Bible study and I do the prayers and I look at God's word and I learn from it and ask God to guide me in whatever I'm going to be doing that day and forward, that things will be better. They may not work out to where I think they will or I hoped, but I'm going in the right direction. And that's how I start every day.
Love it. Love it. That's amazing. We didn't even get to get into that part of your story, the substance use and stuff, because I feel like that's such a big part of, like, actor, like, culture, like, the substance use, like, you hear it all the time, you see a lot of, like, celebrities and stars and movie stars going into rehab, things like that,
Yeah.
and so, I think that's such a big piece of, like, the culture here to, like, hit on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the only other thing we didn't get to hit on, but that's fine, was just, like, if there's, like, no, I don't think that's relevant, never mind. But no, I wish we would've gotten more into that side of your story because I feel like that's so impactful. I mean, substance abuse, I mean, it happens in all different walks, parts of life, right? It can happen if you're an actor. It can happen if you're just, being a stay-at-home dad. It can happen if you're, working in business or finance or whatever you're working in, like, it's across all board. So
Yeah.
having those conversations, I think, is super important. But hey, there is a way to get through all of it. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, if you gotta go to a center and you gotta go to rehab and you gotta, get clean and sober, that way, great, do it. If you can do it on your own and think you can do it on your own or do it like on your own with like AA meetings and local resources, great, do it. However you need to do it, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
important.
I think I think, and I can't speak for women, but as men, it's like you rely on yourself, you don't cry, you
Mhm.
get through it on your own. And so asking for help is really really
Taboo.
difficult. It's difficult for us.
Mhm.
But,
But
when you
it's
go into
100%
these
okay to ask for
meetings,
help.
absolutely. And sometimes it's absolutely necessary. And it shows a ton of courage to do that, in your weakest moment to ask for help. And when you go into these meetings, when you go into these different environments where people have gone through what you're going through, they get it.
Yeah.
They
You're not
understand.
alone. You're not
Yeah.
alone.
And people, they call them normies, people that don't struggle with this stuff. They just don't get it. They don't get where your mind is and where your spirit is. But these people do. And that, if nothing else, go there for that. You know what I mean? And I think when I went to that rehab center, I think everybody should go with it, regardless of whether you're struggling with substance, because you go in there, you get your phone away, you get quiet, you get all the distractions away,
Yeah, everybody
and you
needs
just
that.
connect.
Everybody
You
needs some
connect with
time with
God,
that.
and yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Dave. Well, let's jump into the dad zone here and then start to wrap this thing up. Into the dad zone here. This is just a fun way for us to end the conversation, unwind it down because sometimes we get deep and heavy into it. We laughed a lot today, so this wasn't a heavy one. This has been a fun
Yeah,
one. So, first question in the dad zone: does pineapple go on pizza? Big question. Big question.
you know, absolutely. I didn't think it did, but when I had it, I was like, man, it's pretty damn good.
All right, Dave.
It's
I'm gonna
a
end this
Hawaiian
now.
pizza.
I'm just gonna end this now. We're just not gonna post. I'm just kidding. Who are three people, dead or alive, you'd like to sit down with and have a dinner party?
Gosh, Frederick Douglass. I just think his story was so incredible. My dad passed away when I was 16. I'd like him to be at the dinner. Gosh, and Marcus Aurelius.
Very cool. And
It'd
then
be an
what
interesting
is
conversation.
love it. What is your guilty pleasure food?
Gosh, I mean, man, I ate ice cream last night, which is bad. That's my sweet tooth is rough, but I love Indian. I love Indian food.
Okay.
On a cheat day, that's stinks up the house. My wife hates it. Yeah, good
I
stuff.
love that. Love that. And then last question in the dad zone. What is one piece of advice that you would offer to a new dad, age 18 to 22, that's just starting out his fatherhood journey?
Yeah, don't try to plan how everything's gonna go. Just do your best and be present for them, and lead with love, because things aren't going to go the way you planned. Just do your best, and things will work out. You don't know how to change a diaper, but the first couple days you're going to change like 150. You'll learn as you go.
Hey, get your reps in. Get your reps in.
Yeah, get your reps in.
All right. Well, Dave, this has been awesome. So before I fully wrap this thing up, the CTRA for today for the listener, this is our clear takeaway, reflection, and action. The takeaway I hope you take away from today is the dream is never just about the destination. It's about who you become along the way. Reflection for the listener, what's part of your story that still feels quote unquote unfinished? And what's one small step you can take today to keep writing it? And then your action is to take 10 minutes tonight to tell your kids or your spouse about a time you failed and kept going. These are the stories that build resilience, not perfection. So if you want to hear that one more time, to know what your homework is between now and next week, your clear takeaway, your reflection, and your action, go to rewind the last 30 seconds and hear it again. If you want to keep up with Dave and follow his work, you can keep up with him on social media, Instagram, Facebook. You can also find his IMBD profile as well. See all his work, resume, and a little bit more about him there. You can check out his latest film, Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan, which is now streaming. And you can also follow Dave on Instagram, Facebook for behind the scenes look and life updates between sets and whatever he decides to post on there. Um, did I miss anything for where people can keep up with your work and things like that?
Nope, that's about it. Go to IMDb and tell everybody to go there, because it kind of boosts my star meter,
Perfect.
which I
Just
guess is a good thing.
go and spam his IMBD. I'll
Yeah,
put in the
yeah.
show notes.
There you go.
A huge thank you, Dave, to you for joining me today and reminding us that success isn't about fame. It's about faith, family, and willingness to keep showing up. If this conversation inspired you, the listener today, share it with another dad or dreamer who needs a little encouragement to stay the course. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us keep bringing these real, raw conversations about life, fatherhood, and purpose. Until next time, keep leading with love, keep showing up, and remember, your presence is a point. And thanks for tuning in to the Young Dad Podcast. We'll catch you next week.